So it's based around a thesis that I've developed called the exponential age, which is, I think most people are familiar with now. It's a similar thesis that other people have had as well, which is that we've got this kind of group of technologies that are in full tilt acceleration mode when we get to full adoption of these technologies. So that's AI, robotics, renewable energy sources, genetic sciences. It's a whole bunch of these technologies, including blockchain, that are all hyper accelerating at the same time.
Raoul, a leading macro analyst and prominent figure in the cryptocurrency world, continues to deliver sharp insights into the future of digital assets. As a former Goldman Sachs executive and a well-known crypto bull, Powell's work centers around how macroeconomic shifts affect the global financial landscape, particularly in the cryptocurrency and digital asset markets where he has significant investments. According to Powell, the macro environment is on the verge of a major transformation as central banks shift from quantitative tightening and aggressive rate hikes to more accommodative policies like rate cuts and quantitative easing. This change, he explains, is crucial to preventing global economies from overheating. The U.S. Federal Reserve recently signaled the start of this transition, announcing its first rate cut since the pandemic began. Powell believes these improving liquidity conditions will lead to explosive growth in the cryptocurrency market. While he is optimistic about the entire space, he highlights Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and Sui as standout assets poised for significant gains, with Solana at the forefront of the next market cycle. In his latest Real Vision update, Powell discusses the evolving macroeconomic environment and provides his outlook for the cryptocurrency market over the next few months. He also shares his investment strategy for capitalizing on what he sees as a $100 trillion opportunity in the crypto space, identifying key areas for growth and positioning for long-term success. Join us as we break down Powell's insights, including his thoughts on the banana zone and the cryptocurrencies he's backing for 2025 and beyond. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions. And check out our other videos featuring industry leaders like Michael Saylor, Kathy Wood, and Lynn Alden.
So, okay, fine. So the exponential age is really all about, this is the fastest, largest pace of change of technology that humanity will ever go through. And it's probably an entire reworking of society itself and the economy. So what do I mean about the economy? This is this 6-7 years business. Is really, it's to do with how the economic machine works. Basically, GDP growth is driven by population growth, productivity growth, and debt growth. Debt growth has basically stopped except refinancing of old debts. Then we've got population growth. Every country in the developed world is seeing collapsing population growth. So therefore, they should see collapsing GDP growth. But you've got all this debts, and we've been adding to the debts to try and counterbalance this. This has been this big super trend we've seen. And then productivity growth, because of all the old people, has collapsed as well. So what we have is non-productive, slowing economies based around demographics. Then something has just happened, which was we've just introduced infinite human knowledge and infinite humans into the economy, which is AI plus robots. People don't yet understand what this means, but we're based on a services-based knowledge economy. Manufacturing was already being replaced by machines, but this is replacing everything. Now, there's two sides of that. One is the doom of, oh my God, what are humans going to do? I worry less about that. I more think, what the fuck does it mean for the economy if we've got infinite growth of humans? So if generally, let's say, population growth or immigration growth, whatever, is at 1%, 2%, 3%, right? And trend rate of GDP has been averaging of like 1.75 in the US. If you suddenly throw in 1 billion AIs and 1 billion robots, you've kind of added 25% of the population of the world. Now, it's not one-for-one match, but what it does is suddenly create outsized economic growth, but in ways we don't understand. The other part of it is productivity. Productivity I think of as the amount of output per unit of energy. Electricity is the generalized energy, and what we're doing is lowering the cost of energy via renewables. People don't see it yet, they don't believe it yet, but what you see of every technological curve is they're all collapsing in cost, and the output's going up. So electricity growth via renewables is just an exponential curve. And Elon's been talking about this, others have been talking about this. It will, within the next 10 years or so, it'll be the largest source of energy on the planet. And then we've got nuclear and other stuff to come into it. When you change productivity, let's say you halve the cost of electricity, you double productivity. Now you've got AI and robots on top. So what we're going to end up in is la la land in economic terms. Economies we don't understand. And it's not in 20 years' time, the old predictions we used to see. This is like, it's happening in front of our eyes. So then what happens when you've got these technologies doing this? Well, we don't really know. We're already seeing things like, what is a company when you've got AI agents? What does that mean? What do financial markets mean? How does venture capital work? How does private equity work? How do IPO markets work when companies get disrupted? What is software? If you think about the growth of what we know as the technology sector, it's all been software. But that software you can instantly replicate using a more powerful AI. And AI is building its own AI. So it just gets faster and faster and faster. The costs of compute, costs of electricity keep coming down. And you've created different economic systems and different economic actors that didn't exist before. So we don't know what returns look like from markets. I think markets, when you've got, let's say you invent a incredible new software tool, I just stick it into my AI, it copies it immediately, improves on it. Okay, I can do that in 3 minutes. So then what is a business? How do you value a business? Well, it all becomes about attention, something you and I have talked about, and how long you can keep attention. And so companies start trading a lot more like ICOs or meme coins. And the capital structure of markets change. Now, also, Beeple asked me a great question, which was, well, what happens if somebody gets AGI and trains it on markets? Surely they're just going to make $10 trillion and win everything. And it's probably true. Right? How do we compete in markets when something vastly more intelligent than us? If you think of the average AI right now as an intelligence, an IQ of about 120, I think is the new ChatGPT and Sonnet 3.5, it's going to go to 400 to 1,000 and then to 1,000,000. So we can't comprehend what any of this means. And so in the end, I think we've got about 6 years. I put 2030 as a rough date when we don't begin to understand how the fuck anything works. And so therefore, I would like to be on the other side of that, protected, which is you got the house that you want, you got the lifestyle that you want, and you don't have to be part of the economic machine.
Right. And you can spend a lot of your time trading NFTs, culture coins, meme coins, and being part of, I guess, investing and being part of the way in which the world is heading.
That's right. And, what does that mean? I mean, do humans just entertain themselves by trading attention? Probably. I mean, we love gambling. Humans have done that all the time. We also love nature on the flip side of the coin, getting out into all of that. And you and I have talked for a long time about the rise of social communities and how you can economically participate in that via blockchain technology. So there's a lot of changes to what society will look like, but it's going to be pretty hard to adapt to. I mean, it's hard enough trading meme coins now, but when the whole world is set up like that, it's really, really difficult.
And the point you made, which I think is a really good one around breaking down how GDP growth, basically the formula for GDP growth, right? And the key focus on productivity being the next big lever that is going to be pulled, specifically as it relates to a world in which we have ubiquitous AI, right? Which you could argue we're kind of getting that tipping point today. If GDP is growing and maybe growing at a faster rate because of this productivity unlock, how do you see that additional growth? Like, where do you see that value actually accruing to, right? It's not going to be evenly distributed.
We don't know. I mean, we're already seeing the nascent signs of AI agents being able to be economically incentivized, right? This whole thing right now, the terminal truths, it's not real in that respect because it didn't launch its own token and stuff like that. But you can see it. I think people are starting to see the big picture. Now, if you think about agents, what is an agent? If you think of Fiverr, you can hire anybody to do anything. You're building a website, you're building a business, you hire a lawyer, you hire this, you hire that. They're all agents for you. But AI can do all the agent stuff, but it will charge money. So this is where the blockchain rails comes in, of moving the money around so AI agents can pay for the compute and stuff like that. But we're also seeing on the energy side of the equation, I think we're going to go to a distributed grid. So people say, well, it's impossible to create a huge grid for New York City on solar. Yeah, but you don't need to do that. What you do is you end up with Microsoft building 3 Mile Island to run its data centers. You get localized AI. We're seeing the battery technology from Tesla can run a house easily, any size house. So you have localized power. You have a whole different type of grid. And AI organizes a grid as well, putting the power in and out. It's very complicated to have a decentralized grid. AI will be able to run that for efficiencies as well. Where does the money come to? We don't know. Is it going to go to some mega corporations, X and Meta and OpenAI? Probably. But there's going to be a battle like there is in crypto or in money between open source, decentralized versus centralized. That battle is going to be gigantic. The battle over AI is going to be gigantic. But I'm not sure the profits will accrue to individuals. Now, people talk about UBI. Fine, there might be some UBI. Yes, we will tax the robots and the AI. We have to. If not, the economic system doesn't work. But I think we will figure out our own ways to make a living within that, as we talked about. And, that's community-based actions, I think.
Yeah, and from the perspective of AI being productivity unlock one, but also being potentially extremely deflationary over the longer term, how do you see that secular trend that we all expect? How does that coexist with a lot of what we've talked about for arguably years now with the big currency debasement, monetary inflation narrative? You talked or mentioned about UBI. If AI comes in, and let's say the combination of AI and robotics, for example, replaces more jobs than it actually winds up creating, right? What does the world look like for the average laborer in that sense? Is it a world where we get to UBI, productivity is still obviously high and creates this big unlock for GDP growth, and everyone is kind of like, we have a larger welfare state, but things aren't as bad as that sounds on paper, if that makes sense? Like, how do you see the deflationary trends interacting with the bigger picture theses we've had around monetary inflation?
So the monetary debasement has generally been to manage the debt because GDP is not fast enough to manage the debt growth. But GDP is going to come faster. Now, they need to tax the robots and the AI for it to go back to the economy to finance this stuff. But debt to GDP will collapse. We saw this in the 1950s and 60s. We saw a similar, a productivity revolution that happened then based around technology, and the debts from World War II essentially got debased away. So we've seen this before. But I don't know what the world looks like when it's this deflationary. We've created a currency like Bitcoin to try and avoid the deflationary elements. But if everything is deflationary, I don't know what that world looks like in the end. What is money in a system of abundance? That's another question we don't know. If everything is basically almost free, I mean, ChatGPT right now is $20 a month. It's fucking ludicrous. It's having a mentor on anything with an IQ of 120 on every subject known to humanity. And that's where we are today. And this is going to be the worst it's ever going to be. $20 a month. I mean, that's so deflationary. It's stupid.
And with the rise of open source, right, you can make the argument that a lot of the GPTs of a year from now, 2 years from now, will cost less and less. Like that curve is also dropping.
They're going to be like water. It's going to be ubiquitous and everywhere on everything. So what is money when there's no scarcity? This is a question most people don't think through. And we don't know the answer, but what is scarcity in that world? Yes, there's some things that are purposefully scarce. One of the reasons I've collected a lot of NFTs is there is scarcity there. There is scarcity in experiences, human experiences. They become more expensive. But all of the things that we think of as scarce, lawyers, accountants, research writers, all of this stuff goes to zero. I mean, zero. So money doesn't have much of a purpose when almost most of the things that we do for economic day-to-day activity don't have value at all.
It's really interesting. I just thought of that I don't think we've ever actually fully fleshed out or talked about, but the world you just laid out, or the trends you just laid out in terms of productivity, AI, taxing the robots, taxing AI, which can actually be, if productivity is growing at a fast enough rate, can actually become a significant portion of tax revenue that can then actually start to potentially reverse that trend of debt to GDP growth, the deficit, which has been a big part of our thesis around why long-term bullish on Bitcoin. But does that almost go against, like, at a certain point, are we making the argument for like the bear case for Bitcoin, because we're talking about what a potential solution to this large deficit, monetizing, debt and monetary inflation, are making the argument that AI could potentially actually reverse that trend, which really kind of gets to the core of what the thesis for Bitcoin is?
I don't know. You could argue it both ways. If money becomes valueless, then either Bitcoin is valueless too, or it's immensely valuable because it is scarce in its supply. And it just trades on its scarcity like gold does. So I'm not entirely sure. I can see it both ways. I can see what's the point. Why do we need an exchange, unit of exchange, in which case it all goes to zero, or at least it's some level of economic security that has value over time. Because once you get to the 21 million Bitcoin, they become like X copy NFTs. They're just valuable in their own right because there's a certain amount that can exist. But is there demand for it? That's another question. I don't know. Yes, there's massive demand for blockchain technology because that is how money, value, the internet, everything runs in the future, including AI. But does Bitcoin have value? I mean, that's a contentious statement. The answer is I don't know. I think, we have to hear some debates from people around this idea, because I don't think people are thinking, well, if we don't need money, really, what's the point?
Yeah,
does it solve a problem when the world's deflationary?
Less than 15 minutes into this conversation, we've already thrown ourselves into the deep end.
Yeah.
So pulling ourselves back out a little bit, two of the exponential technologies and trends that obviously are very front and center for you, like we talk about AI and blockchain and Web3. What do you see as the potential impact that the two have on one another? Or in other words, where do you see the actual touch points between these two exponential technologies going forward? So
everyone needs to drop their understanding of what blockchain is, because they come with an anchor. They come with an anchor based on Bitcoin and blah, 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 blah. What it is a globalized, decentralized ledger that records truth. And so in a world where there's more machine-based activity, we need a way of recording what is truth, what are transactions, what are contracts, what are all of that, right? That's what blockchain will do. So basically, the internet of the future can't run without it. It just simply can't. And that's what people don't get, that it's more than just money. It's basically how a digital world runs. We can't be more digital without this transition that we're seeing, which is why the adoption is so big over time and ongoing. And when it comes to the intersection of AI, well, AI is also an extension of the internet. When David Bowie's interview about the internet was still the greatest thing of all time, when he says it's an alien fucking life form. And people didn't get it, but it is, and it's coming alive, right? The internet is coming alive via AI. So it has now a payment system, a system of record and truth, and it is living on this thing that we built, this web. So these things are so inseparable in what they are, because they are the internet. They are us in many ways as well, because AI is trained on all of humanity and our thoughts and everything. So economic activity has to be recorded on blockchain. contracts have to be recorded on blockchain. That's most things. Most things are a contract in some way, shape, or form. So that all goes into the blockchain technology. At a simpler form, obviously, an AI can't get a bank account. It's hard enough to get a bloody bank account as it is, but you don't need one. You just have a wallet. And you're seeing this with this GOAT token and the terminal truths is Brian Armstrong reached out and said, I'll give you your own wallet. So because he knows that this is where this is going. AIs will have their own wallets, and it all works without us having to be involved. And as long as you've got a blockchain, you've got proof and truth. And so they're totally inseparable from each other. They are all the same thing, which is our digital future.
One of the things I love about our conversations is I think you have a really good insight into what I'll call it traditional investors are thinking, right? Or kind of what consensus is, just given your network, who you talk to frequently. When it comes to, and TradFi being a term that's thrown around a lot in crypto, when you think about non-crypto native investors, right? Traditional investors, do you get the sense that they're waking up to the scale of the changes that we're talking about here? Like where is the biggest disconnect, or what's not priced in right now in your view relative to where a vast majority of, let's say, more traditional investors are focused right now?
They all think it's about NVIDIA. And people just don't understand the magnitude of what is happening. And most people are incentivized not to understand it. Right? Can you look?
And is that because NVIDIA is arguably right now one of the purest ways to get exposure from a, again, traditional market standpoint, and there's just not enough alternative options or publicly traded instruments like publicly traded stocks to get exposure to it?
Yeah, I think people are only seeing this right now as, there's a new source of demand for this company. What they're not seeing, they're just not seeing it, is this is a wholesale change in the economy, society, and everything else. That this is the biggest change we've ever gone through. They will see it, and we will end up with a full-blown bubble cycle at some point as people understand what the fuck is happening. But they're so far behind understanding it. I can see how Tesla is trading. People just don't understand the scale of this thing. And so they can only make sense of it by investing in NVIDIA or saying, NVIDIA's a bubble. That's basically the whole AI thing in a nutshell. Nobody's using it yet. Well, you don't want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a banker, a trader, anybody, and admit, holy fuck, this thing's coming. And it's going to be better than me in everything I do. And so they're incentivized not to see it. But that moment will come, that tipping point will come, where people will start realizing, both with blockchain technology, where it's not just about money, but it's about the internet itself, and they'll see it with AI, that this is the kind of future of humanity. And we are going to merge with the machines. My working thesis is we're going to split into two groups. We think politics now, left and right, and those are basically, we've gone so polarized because of this demographic issue. So basically, everybody's feeling left out. Nobody's making the money. The American dream or whatever dream died on them. But I can't remember where I was going with that. But I think humanity splits into the accelerationists and the decelerationist. We will see, this will be the biggest political battle, I think, of the 2030 election, is actually going to be about how do we want to interact with this thing? There'll be a group of people who say, well, look, I've already got my Apple Watch, I've already got my phone, give me the implants, give me this, give me longer life, give me the superpower of all the AI. I want the AI to run governments and companies and everything else. And a bunch of other people who are saying, no fucking way. And that is going to be the biggest political battle, I think, of our lifetimes.
The future looks incredibly promising for the cryptocurrency and digital asset space as we move into 2025 and beyond. We invite you to share your views on Raoul Pal's insights, as well as your thoughts on the upcoming developments for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in the comments below. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and enable post notifications to stay updated with more content like this.